And good evening, and welcome to Thursday Night Live, y'all. We got my special co-host, best co-host in the world, Nirvana. And of course, we got the guest, and too, y'all, Jennifer Williams, the best Aquascaper in the world.
That's no.
Uh-oh. Okay, number two.
Turn it down.
I'm putting too much emphasis on it.
Welcome in, Pelham Aquatics.
Welcome, Jeff. Yeah, and for those that are watching replay, much love, appreciate it. Hopefully, y'all can get a little tip of interest from Jennifer Williams. She has a lot of wisdom for us, so stay tuned for that. Let's see. And for those that don't know, this is her. She did mention that she thought about just doing a picture of her, and that's it. But we thought that'd be kind of like a clickbait. It's like, that won't work. So, anyways, Jennifer, how long have you been in the aquarium hobby?
Oh, in the hobby itself?
Yeah.
Since I was a little girl. We had an aquarium growing up, a little 10-gallon. I had, the assorted whatever was available at the pet store. And I kept that through college and my first apartment. And then there was a break of about maybe 3 years. And I set it up again. And ever since. Now, I didn't find aquascaping until about 2007.
And how did that happen? Was it like you hit a rock and you woke up? And
No, it's a story I've told, but you guys might not have heard it. So I was keeping cichlids, specifically fire mouths. And so if you have like 2 fire mouths, you have like 10,000 fire mouths, right? Because that's how it works. And so I had 10,000 fire mouths. I put an ad up on Craigslist and I said, fire mouth cichlids, bring a bucket and a net, take as many as you want, basically. And this dude shows up at my door and just this big imposing former army guy. And I'm like, this is a really dumb thing that I'm doing. Come on in. He comes in, he's got his bucket and his net, and he's just scooping fish out and just rambling on about local clubs. And did you know that we have clubs in the area? And did you know about Guapa, which is our local planted tank club? And how about this Amano guy? And I was like, this gentleman here in my condo right now is full on crazy. There's fish clubs. And so sure enough, as soon as he left, I did a little Google, looked up Amano, and of course, that's how everybody gets in, right? That's kind of like step one. So I was pretty intrigued by that. And then I looked up Guapa, and they had a meeting, I think, the next weekend. And so I was like, I don't have anything else to do. I'll go see what kind of crazy people are in this fish club. And I went and sat in the back of the room, and everybody was super nice, and it was very interesting and engaging. And that was it. I fell for it. So I got suckered in.
Woo!
The rest is history.
So how many aquariums do you have right now?
Right now, to running, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Yes, 5.
And not running. 100?
No. Well, are we counting the shed in the building?
Yeah.
I have a couple of empty ones. One of them is just an immersed setup, so it's not really a fish tank. It's keeping plants. So just a couple.
Right. Cool. So, what would you tell yourself 20 years ago, if you could?
20 years ago?
Yeah.
I would say you're not going to believe this, but in 20 years, this is what you're going to be doing. I would probably have told myself to go find a club earlier. I really think that if you're fortunate enough to have a local club, and if you're not, create one. I think that that's really the best way to get ahead in this hobby. It's such a resource. You've got, all the knowledge base of the people that have been doing it for 50 years and the friendships and kindred spirits you can just sit and nerd out with and nobody's judging you. Plus, all the benefits of hand-me-downs or, somebody's trimming their tank and they've got all these extra plants they could just give you. I mean, it's such a great resource and such a great way to grow in the hobby that I think that would have been the one thing that I would have recommended to myself.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
that we're in the internet age, there's also virtual groups. So you can join a club even without being nearby a club. There are some people who live in rural areas that just don't really have access to other people who are interested in aquaria. So, joining some Facebook groups, our club has a Discord, so that we can still have those conversations when we're not having meetings, and when there's people who join up that are too far to actually drive in for meetings in person. So clubs are much more accessible nowadays than they've ever been before.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really good point. And I'm probably showing my age because I don't automatically think of the internet. But that's a really, really good point to make. The world has become so much smaller with all of the internet and all the social media that it is really easy to get involved with a group of people. And if you find a group and you don't love it, if there's troublesome people in it, you can always just go find another group. And it's a lot easier to do now than it ever was. Good call. Sorry, I left that out.
It's okay. I'm millennial, so that's kind of my thing, is the social media stuff. And I do a lot of that stuff for work. And YouTube has been a new thing for me, but I've always been a part of the online groups for fish keeping. And I've really enjoyed it. The forums and everything, even before Facebook was the popular spot, all of that stuff. It's great to have such a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips. Like, you have a question these days about something very, very specific, there's information about it out there. You just got to know where to look.
That's true. Although two downsides. First downside to me is that you make all of these friends with people across the United States and across the world, and they're so far away, you can't just go over and hang out. That stinks.
Oh man, I feel that pain almost daily. Because I'm not from Texas. I moved here. So all of my friends are either in Washington or, scattered throughout the US that I've met online. And, even when I was living in Washington, I was not able to actually go to a lot of the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society meetings because I was working. So pretty much all of my contact with those people was online. I saw Michelle pop into the chat. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
And then let's see who else. Silver Creek showed up. So we've got some people coming into the chat now.
Awesome. Yeah, they're here for Jen. So
the other thing I would say is the downside with all the information available at your fingertips, it's a lot harder to weed out the good information from the bad information. And that's something that I see happening, and I struggle with, because there are a lot of people that just put out really bad information, but they have 1 million followers, so people think that they know what they're talking about. So that is kind of a downside to all of this also. And how to vet, if you don't know anything and you're just getting into the hobby, how to vet that and see it. I don't have an answer for that. That's really difficult.
I mean, I hate to say it, but you get the same thing in fish stores, though.
Oh, sure.
Like, you walk into a fish store and you have to trust that the person who's selling you the fish knows what they're talking about. Most of the time, they're making commission. So all they want is to sell you the thing, whether it's an animal or decor or substrate, whatever, chemical products. I mean, I can't count how many times I have walked into a fish store and, had to keep my mouth shut because I overheard an employee talking to somebody and they're telling them wrong information.
Horrible information, usually.
Yeah, and it's stuff that, like, they generally, as a newbie, wouldn't know to go fact check. So, it's hard because the internet has a lot of bad information out there, but you can usually, like, based on, resources that are actually, like, scientific journals, for example, you can go look at a scientific journal and figure that that's pretty trustworthy, so that people who reference those scientific journals are probably going to be a little more trustworthy than somebody who's just spouting off stuff on YouTube.
I agree with that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. See, this is my problem. I have such a hard time keeping my mouth shut if I hear somebody saying just, like, straight up wrong information. It is hard.
I will even, like, wait until they're done or leaving and pounce on them in the parking lot. Just be like, anything inside, but
yeah. Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that I do frequently is if I see somebody in a fish store that is really struggling with the information that's been given to them by an employee or somebody else, I will usually recommend a couple of YouTubers that I know to be trustworthy and, you know, good with information that actually back up their work with science. And that can usually really, really help somebody who's super new. Aquarium Co-op, it has some really, really great beginner level resources that are just like super easy, simple, broken down stuff that is accessible for beginners, but correct information.
Right. Also, Rachel O'Leary. She's not really active right now, but her information is always spot on.
Right.
Yeah. So, and based in like tons of experience and tons of knowledge and science. And she's definitely, we need her back. I'm working on it, but it'll be a minute.
Hey, Zoe, welcome. Tommy, Silver Creek, welcome. Lots of Lab, welcome, bro. Going through the chat. Dave Crane.
Hey, Dave.
Dave's awesome. Hey, Skipper, welcome. Okay, I think I got him, everyone. Welcome, everyone. So the question of the night that started all this, y'all, is this right here. Is aquascaping easier than it looks?
I think a lot of people get I think a lot of people get really intimidated by aquascaping, not realizing that, you know, there are ways to do it in a low cost, low maintenance fashion that still looks really, really good. You don't have to go super high tech to get great results from an aquascape.
Agree. I would also say that what you see in like the contests and online and in the magazines is not realistic for when you get started.
Yeah.
So if you, I know. And a lot of times it's actually not realistic for real life because I call them serial aquascapers. So these guys that, you know, just do contests. They set up the tank, they get it grown in perfectly, they take a picture and they tear it down. Like these are not long-term manageable aquascapes. They're just not going to a year or 2 years in your living room. So that's another thing.
I see most of the competition aquascapers, generally what I see is 3 to 6 months is all that they have their aquarium set up for. And then they tear it down and do something different because there's a new contest to compete in. And that has never been my thing. I'm more of the low tech, low maintenance style scaper. And a lot of my stuff has, you know, there's algae growing in it and there's, you know, plants that don't look fantastic all the time. There's sometimes a little bit of oil slick on the surface. Like there are things that are going to happen in your tank over, you know, long periods of time that it's just not going to look like what you see in the picture perfect aquascape magazines. And that's okay. It still looks good.
Right. And that's the other thing is, you know, you have to do a little soul searching and see like how you want the tank to be. Do you want it to be low maintenance? Do you want it to be high impact? Do you want it to last for a long time? Do you want to do it over in 10 minutes? Do you have 8 hours a week to put into trimming stem plants? There's so many questions. And I always tell people, you know, kind of be realistic with the level of aquatic neediness that you're available for, because that's going to really make or break your project also. It's just being prepared to upkeep it. That's, you know, part 2. You can set it up all day long and then have it be beautiful. But if you can't maintain it, it's going to come crumbling down and you're going to get a little heartbroken about it. So that's,
that's a good point, because you also have to be prepared if you go, you know, super high tech and super complex. There are a lot more things that could potentially go wrong in those situations. And you have to be ready for the fact that you're going to fail like more than you would with something that would be more long-term sustainable and like self-sufficient. Because if one thing goes wrong, your CO2 tank runs out and you don't notice it for a couple days, or you accidentally dose fertilizer twice instead of just once, or you have a snail die and it causes a big ammonia spike or something like that. There's all of these things that can cause a delicate system like a high-tech tank to just completely go haywire. And you just have to be prepared in those situations to be like, okay, it got screwed up, so now I have to either start over or fix it, or whatever that may be.
Cry.
You kind of have to be aware. Yeah, you kind of have to be aware that like that's a potential possibility, and it's a lot easier for that to happen in a more delicate system.
Yes, 100%.
Hey, Caro, welcome. So, do you have any of your famous aquascapes in your house, or was that just an aquascape at a competition?
Well, yeah, my 2 biotopes that I won top 5 in the AGA the last couple of years, those are still up and running. I'm when I put something together, I want to enjoy it. I'm not a serial aquascaper, and that's why you have to kind of keep a lot of tanks, because you have to have one available to do a contest tank in, and then you get all full of contest tanks. And you're like, I don't want to take one down, so I guess I'll skip this year, kind of thing. So yeah, I like to enjoy my tanks. So
same.
So
yeah, I think that even if I were to do contest aquascaping, I think I would probably stick to more like the nature and biotype style, because it's what I prefer. I'm not a huge fan of the super manicured. It just doesn't look as natural to me. And that's personal preference for sure.
Yeah, the diorama style tanks, they have their place because they're really just top dogs in all the contests. But for me, no thanks. They don't appeal to me at all. I wouldn't want one in my house. I wouldn't want to maintain them. Plus, they're not long lasting. So it's going to be something that you're going to have to either completely replant constantly, or just be prepared to just tear it down when it goes haywire. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's a different style, and it's tons and tons of talent that these guys put in so much time and so many hours of just detail work to do these incredible diorama tanks. But I can appreciate them. I appreciate the heck out of them, but I don't want one.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a channel, Jen?
No.
What? Someone that's famous don't have a channel?
No, because I don't have anything that I want to show people.
What? You got content right behind you, all over the place.
I know. But to me, because I'm a perfectionist, I just have put so much pressure on myself for everything to be perfect all the time, and I just can't maintain that. Especially with all the traveling I've been doing the last couple of years. It's hard. It's really hard to keep stuff going and looking good all the time. These guys that do it, I don't know how, but that's not really in my ballpark. Sorry.
Content creation is a job in itself.
It is.
So if you want to go that route, it's really hard. I have not made another video since my first one about a month ago, because life happens.
Exactly.
It's stuff like that. If it's not your full-time gig, it gets put on the back burner. And with stuff like aquascaping and tanks, there's always going to be something that is going to bother you, and having that preserved in video content is really hard if you're a perfectionist, because I also am kind of a perfectionist, and it's hard for me to have that immortalized.
Yeah. And I mean, to some extent, and I don't consider myself famous at all, but there's sort of a level that people expect of you. That's a lot. That's a lot to put on to try to hold up to, because I don't want to disappoint anybody, and I know I'm already disappointing myself, obviously, all the time.
No.
But I don't want people to. I mean, I do want people to know that there's a realness behind it, and it's not always perfect. Most of the time it's not perfect, and most of the time it doesn't look great, but I also don't want to be the person showcasing that all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22.
Hey, Nano guy. Hey, Jay, welcome. There you go. Skipper says he doesn't edit.
Yeah. That's hard to do when you're doing a multiple stage video though, because like a lot of aquascapes will have like, you know, the initial setup, and the initial setup doesn't always look like it will in a few weeks when everything's like the plants have, you know, finally stabilized and they're growing upright, and you know, things start looking a little bit more cohesive. The water clears up from any substrate debris. Like, initial setup is just one small portion of like the lifespan of an aquascape. And you know, that's one of the things that I am going to try to showcase with the tank that I recently set up is it goes through life stages, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit that sweet spot when it's finally starting to get aged, and you know, it starts looking really, really, really good, where it's balanced and things are finally looking the way that you envisioned when you first set it up. And not editing a video to show all of that feels like a disservice almost, you know?
That's fair.
Whoops. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's what I've been doing all along.
Well, it's interesting because there's people who just want the raw, you know, content, whatever you want, whatever you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people, you know, who are perfectionists that want to show the whole picture. And it's a lot harder to show that without putting a lot of time and effort into it.
Right. So, Jen, what would you say is your best aquascape you ever did?
So, sentimentally and emotionally,
both.
I would have to say the tank that I did with Rachel for the 2015 aquatic experience.
Okay.
I think. It was just so magical. She's so good at fish and the behavior of fish and the stocking. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Aquatic Experience, back when it was around, it was a live contest, but you were allowed to bring everything already done. So you could bring your hardscape all set up and then just kind of transplant it into the provided tanks.
Right.
So I had been working on it, you know, and she doesn't live that close. She's about 2 hours away. So we would I had it in my house and I would show her pictures and be like, how do you think about this? Where is this? And we kind of worked together that way to put it together, and showed up and she stocked it, and it just felt right. I don't know. I don't have a better way to explain that, but the really, really, the thing that really gets me is when the fish are happy enough that they're spawning. And so you set them up on Friday, and then you get like a couple hours on Saturday morning, and then hands off.
Right.
And so we had dumped the fish in Friday night, so they would have, you know, overnight to acclimate.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we came in the morning, 2 of the 5 species were spawning. And by the end of the day on Saturday, all of them were spawning. And
nice.
To me, there's no better compliment. At that point, I didn't care what the judges said.
Right.
That was all I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so special.
Nice.
That's really cool.
That's the goal of what we're doing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just creating a pretty tank. You're creating an environment for the fish that you're keeping. I mean, really, it all comes back to that. And I'm a firm believer in keeping them in mind when you're setting up your tank, because everything just works together. It's nature, right? You're recreating nature. And if the fish are comfortable and if they're in an environment that reminds them of home and that they are perfect, feel safe, they don't feel threatened, and they're comfortable in, you're just going to get that much of a better reward out of the whole thing than you would if you're, you know, creating something that's just not great for fish to live in. And I think it makes a big difference. I really do.
Hey, Action Dash, Daniel, what's up? Hey, Daniel, this is Jen. She was the Aquascaper at Aquachella, if you don't know. You probably met her,
many places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
solid.
On the topic of, you know, fish spawning and creating an environment for them, that's part of the reason why I really love the style of aquascaping that is essentially just setting up a little ecosystem that kind of sustains itself. And, you know, I introduced a lot of microfauna into my tanks prior to any fish going in so that I can get that established system. So, a lot of my tanks, I don't even feed that often because there's little critters in there that the fish will eat. And creating an environment where those kinds of things thrive on their own, you're going to have more success just because the biodiversity is better. So, you don't have to do as much. It's more enjoyment and less labor. And, the labor that you do with that tank is going to be a little bit more rewarding because it feels like it's more impactful. You're not just constantly cyclically trimming stem plants every week, trying to make everything look measured and perfect. And that's actually one of the reasons I don't use stem plants very often.
I get it.
Mountain Greenery. Welcome. Nice, Skipper. Jen and you will be working together this year in September. I can't wait. Awesome.
At the Keystone Clash.
No way. That's awesome. Is it going to be live streamed?
I'm not going to live stream it, but if Skipper wants to, we can.
That's awesome.
Let's see. We've got new person in the chat, Mountain Greenery. See, Freaky Fish Lady.
Hey, Holly, welcome.
Welcome. So, one question I have for you, Jen, is what kind of plants do you typically like to use more often than others?
My go-tos?
Yeah.
I love plants that I don't have to worry too much about, that are pretty bulletproof. And, if I am traveling for 3 weeks and I can't get to any maintenance, I love Styrogynea repens. I think that's a great plant because you get the benefit of it being either a foreground or possibly mid-ground, depending on how you manage it. I think Tweedy Eye and Monte Carlo, most people know it as Monte Carlo. That's another kind of bulletproof plant. I do love crypts. I mean, who doesn't love crypts? They grow anywhere happily. They don't take over like a val. I don't love vals just because of the maintenance required in keeping them under control.
I'm not a fan.
Alternative to val is the crypt balancea or the crypt spiralis. Same look, much more manageable. They won't get to be 4 feet long and curling over themselves at the top of your tank and creating a nice shadow for everyone else. What else do I like? You've always got, your 8,000 new varieties of Java fern. Can't go wrong with those. Boosts are fun. I kind of still have a little tugging at the heartstrings about how they're being collected. So just tissue culture for me, or if they're coming from a source that I know, they've had them and been growing it out for 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, I think the only boost that I've ever ended up with has either come from somebody from a club or has been a cutting from a friend. I don't think I've even bought tissue cultures because every time I buy a tissue culture of boost, they just don't do very well. They grow really slowly, and if you don't have if you don't have an established tank and you're still in that initial setup phase, tissue culture boosts just do not do as well unless you wait until your tank is already established. And then I feel like they have a better time transitioning. But they're fragile since they grow so slow. It's hard.
I wonder if a big thing with tissue culture is how they've been transported and managed before you get them. And that's a really big issue that we have, especially
the genetics of the mother plant too, because the way tissue culture works is they're a genetic clone. So if the mother plant from that clone is not as genetically strong as another, then you end up with that in the tissue culture clones as well. So, and you see this with house plants and all sorts of plants that are grown through tissue culture is and I'm into house plants too. So one of the things that has happened is a lot of these plants that are really popular that they're trying to put in garden centers and whatnot, they have taken a subpar mother plant and then made clones of that. So all of the clones are now subpar and they're just everywhere now. And I feel like that happens with aquatic plants more often than people realize.
That's possible. I mean, honestly, if I had to choose between tissue culture and just a potted or bunch plant, I would go with tissue culture every time, just because it's got a better chance of being in good shape and not having pests and all this stuff. So a lot of the farms now I'm not trying to bash the farms at all. They're great. They have, incredible stock, but you know, they can get infiltrated with things too. I mean, you can get eels or leeches or gibba or, you know, any number of things can come in on it. It's not the end of the world by any stretch, but you're not going to ever see anything like that from a tissue culture.
Right. Hey, KGE, welcome. Hey, Mark Stolson, what's up? Temple Fish Chats, welcome. Great to see you at Aqua Show. DJ Guppy Fish, wow, everybody's coming in.
Yeah.
Legacy, Melvin, welcome.
I feel like everybody just got the push notification.
I think so. I think that's what happened. That's it. Hey, yeah. So how do you decide what you're going to aquascape?
Ask with different words.
Uh-huh.
How, like which tank I'm going to do, or how I'm going to do the, like what design I'm looking for, or the style? Yeah, the design, the style. How do you? Well, I usually have some sort of a general idea of what I want to do. Like if it's going to be a biotope, or if it's going to be, you know, a nature style or whatnot. If it's for a contest, a lot of times I'll also just kind of be setting something up for a contest that is going to have to travel. So that's a whole different consideration when you're setting something up. But a lot of times after that part, the way I decide how it's going to go together is based on the materials. I really, a lot of times, just let the materials talk to me more than anything else. Like I'm not a sketcher. There's a lot of aquascapers that will go and like painstakingly sketch what they want to do and spend weeks trying to figure out, you know, what do they want it to look like. And I personally find that that's very limiting, because to go in that particular direction, then your whole plan's off. But if you just kind of lay everything out in front of you and have a look, and then something will jump out, either, you know, a particular piece of wood or a particular stone, it's going to jump out at you and be like, use me right now. And once you kind of get started, it all just falls into place for me. And I think that's really the easiest way to explain it, and the easiest way to go about it also, because you're not constraining yourself to anything other than your imagination.
Yep, I agree. I think that I think the most successful aquascapers, in my observation, I personally believe that that's usually what they do, is because when you're in person, like it's hard to really plan something that thoroughly when you don't know what's going to be provided to you. You may have like an idea and like experience based on previous, but you don't really know for sure what's going to be made available to you at the contest on the day of. So in my opinion, it's just better to go in with a general direction that you want to go. And then, you know, let the materials dictate from there.
I have a screaming cat.
Hey, y'all. The live stream, it just turned to a cat stream. So, bring your cats, y'all. We're going to get
Apologies. He found his favorite toy, and he likes to just prance around the house announcing to everyone what an excellent he is. So I'm bearing witness that Mr. Putter caught his toy.
Aww.
Yes, it's great when you're doing a live stream.
Oh yeah, it's a perfect background music.
He'll be back. Don't worry.
Hey, Shark fan, welcome. Right on,
We've got Craig's Catfish Cave in the chat as well.
Nice.
Welcome in.
So do you prefer the saltwater aquascape or freshwater aquascape?
I mean, I have tons more experience with freshwater, but I mean, I do have that. And let's see, that will be shortly. It's different. It's very different. I don't know that one is better than the other. They're just very different.
I feel like that's like not a fair comparison, because saltwater is it's a totally different aesthetic. And, you know, there are some people who don't even like the saltwater aesthetic at all, you know, and some people don't like the freshwater aesthetic at all. So it's a very subjective thing. And I really don't think it's fair to compare one to the other when they are so different and totally different tastes too. And, you know, with saltwater, you could do corals, or you could do macroalgae, You could do more of like a tide pool type setup. There are just so many different things you can do with saltwater that you just can't do with freshwater. So yeah, it's a hard choice to even make that call.
Agreed.
Very personal.
Mm-hmm. So, what choices do you have in the saltwater aquascaping?
What choice? Like for materials?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's not lots of, but there's several different types of rock that you can go with. And again, that's a very, personal preference kind of thing. They all have kind of their pluses and minuses. You could also do, just if you wanted to do, say, like a tide pool, you could use not the same kind of stone. Hip Hong actually did a really, really cool. It's basically an iwagumi. I see you smiling.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. I'm friends with Hip, so I've seen all.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That tank it's awesome. It's macroalgae primarily. It's got a couple of softies in it, but it's just, I believe he used cerio stone. Just created it like a freshwater iwagumi, and then planted it with macroalgae and soft corals, and it's stunning. I love it, and it's a little tiny thing. It's like, I don't even think it's a 60. I think it's a 30 centimeter.
Cool.
I think you're right. I actually think it might be the same tank that I have on sitting in my kitchen or on my living room table, because he's got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But there was a question from the Nano Aquarium guy. Do you decide on the scape first and then the fish, or the fish first and then the scape?
Ooh, both. It depends. So if I have a particular, like if I'm going to do a biotope, then I will be scaping for the fish and the environment. But if I'm doing something else, sometimes I will do the scape and not really know who's going to live in it, but have a general idea of what types of fish are going to be in it and what they're going to like. But most of the time I have an idea of who's going to go in the tank, and I will work around that.
Yep.
I think it's a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if you have like a particular project for breeding, I feel like that would be a situation where you would definitely cater the tank to the fish. But there are also like plenty of different aquascapes that you could potentially put a lot of different varieties of fish in.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest aquascape that you've done?
I did a private 10-foot, I think it was like 10 foot by 3 foot by, it was either 3 or 4 foot tall aquarium that this woman over here had built into her home. It was in the wall, and like she had a whole like room behind it for the equipment and everything. That was pretty amazing. And she had a specific idea. She wanted it to be iwagumi, very, very minimal.
Wow.
Hair grass. I mean, it took probably 6 hours to plant the hair grass in the thing. It was
the whole thing, hair grass?
Almost. It was about 90% hair grass. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It took forever.
That would have been so much work.
Yes, it was. But it was great. She had discus, and she did cardinal tetras, of course, because if you're gonna do discus and you want that classic look. She was a big fan of like early Amano stuff. And then I think she had Corey's in there also. Unfortunately, I never got like a all grown in, all done photo of it. But I mean, she sent me a quick like picture on her phone, but there was glare everywhere because it's in the middle of the house. But yeah, that's one that I really cherished that time because it was so special. And how often do you get to do that? Really?
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, standing in the tank. It's so cool. Yeah,
I was about to ask if you had to like get in there to plant everything, because that's 4 feet deep. You can't reach that.
Mm-hmm. No, and I also had my darling husband, God bless him. He was my assistant. So I was standing on the outside in the room, and he was in the tank with the stones. I was like, no, honey, a little to the left. And he was like,
So with a scape that large and a tank that deep, what kind of lighting did you have to use for hair grass for that?
She had, this was several years ago. She did AI primes.
Okay.
I think we had 3 or 4 of them, and they were okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't too much light by any stretch, but it was sufficient.
Yeah, because when I think about like a 4-foot deep tank, that's
Deep.
you got to have some pretty powerful lighting to get down that deep and still be effective for plants.
Mm-hmm. And it may have been 3 feet now that I'm thinking about it, because I think it didn't come past my hip, so it was probably 3
okay. Yeah, so probably 3 feet. Yeah,
but still,
because like I still, yeah, 3-foot tank, like you got to have some pretty powerful lights to hit the bottom of that thing. And hair grass does need quite a bit of light because the blades on it are so small. In order for it to photosynthesize, it needs some pretty powerful lighting.
Yep. So yeah, that was a fun time.
Yeah.
KGE wondered, do you just keep tanks that are not catered to being escaped?
You can't see it right now, but this one's a farm tank. So I do typically keep probably at least one running that just is a holding, basically kind of a holding facility, or if I've got like fry that I'm growing in. But everything's got plants in it. It'll always wind up having plants in it just because there's never enough room. And I'm a big, one of my downfalls is trimming and then not wanting to throw anything away.
Yeah.
A bucket until it rots, and I have the best intentions.
That's my weak point too, is just sticking stuff in buckets and then forgetting about it, or my last big problem was I stuck a bucket full of plants with some water in it on the patio, not thinking about how hot it was gonna get. And oh my god, that was some bad soup.
It was steamed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I bet it smells great.
Let's see. I thought I saw. Yeah, Nisa popped in, and Trash Cat was here. Yeah. Okay.
Hey!
So
look who you have here, y'all. Someone I haven't seen in ages.
Oh, hey.
Brooklyn Bell! Listening while making tacos, making hugs. Hey, Brooklyn, if you have any extra tacos, send them my way. I'll love some. Thanks, Brooklyn.
So since awesome. You've mentioned your largest scape, what's your smallest?
There you go.
I mean, I've done like little 2.5 gallons. So Guapa, when I first started, we used to do every year. We would do a nano contest just for members, and we would do those little Petco 2.5 gallon tanks. We would get a whole set, a whole kit, and then we get I think 2 months or 3 months to grow it out and then take a picture, and then everybody would vote on it. It was really a great thing that we did, and we don't do it anymore, but I definitely have done several of those. I've done. I have. So Aqualife Iconic, Nancy, they have what they call a serene baby, and it's basically like a bookshelf tank. If you take a shrink ray to it, and it's I think like a 1/2 gallon. The cutest thing ever. And they also have like.
I think I have a few of those.
Yeah, they have these super tiny sponge filters too. I mean, it's just it's the most adorable thing because it looks like a big tank with a little, with a sponge filter, but you put it to scale, you put your glass of water next to it. It's like, what? So I think, that's probably the smallest one that I would consider an aquarium.
I think I've mainly used those for drip acclimation now.
Sure. I use them to raise the shiner fry that I hatched.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It was great for them.
Yep.
So
I currently have a pretty small, it's not an aquarium, it's a paludarium, but it only has about 1 quart of water in it because it's, it's one of the UNS 16 Ts. It's like this big.
Yep.
And I did like a waterfall in it, and
cool.
that was a really fun challenge, but oh my gosh, it is such a pain to maintain because it's so little. Fitting tools in there is a nightmare.
Yes, that's why I don't often do little tiny tanks. Like every now and then you'll forget what a pain it was and be like, oh, this will be fun, and then you remember really quickly that it wasn't.
It's always fun, like for the first 6 months, and then after that you're like, oh god, I have to trim this thing again. You can't let anything grow that big because there's no room.
Yes.
Oh, Garcia's here.
Oh, go! Garcia Aquatics here. Yeah, thanks both for coming in. You're awesome. You rock. You know that. So since you aquascape so much, is there a fish that you really love to have but can't because your tanks won't allow it?
The tanks won't allow it, or the layout won't allow it. I do have a soft spot for plecos. I really do. I really love catfish. They just don't usually. I'll create space for them, and they'll enjoy that space. But the space I create for them is not visible because that's not what they want. So they're perfectly happy in their space that I created for them. And so it just kind of is. It's sad because you want to enjoy them. You know they're happy because they're hanging out in the space you made for them. But you know it's a kind of mixed bag. I like keeping them, but I want to see them and enjoy them also. So
what you could do is do a DIY cave hidden on the front of your tank. Now you can see it, but the thing they're hiding.
Yeah, it could. I don't know how I would incorporate that into something that looks good. That would have to be one of the tanks that's not the Aquascape full bore.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Cool.
I've always really loved severums.
Oh, sure. Yep.
But severums will just annihilate plants.
Everything.
So I've never made it even attempt to keep them because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gorgeous.
Oh, for serious. Especially when they're like all full grown and colored up. Just, so pretty.
Yep.
So this is a question off the books.
Okay.
Is there a fish that you love eating, but would you keep it in an aquarium?
I don't eat fish.
Ah.
Yep.
Okay. Hey.
Yep. It's I mean, not for any like humanitarian or vegetarian type reasons, just the texture for me. Just
I love fish, but I feel like I don't think there's any that I would keep in a tank that I also eat regularly. I feel like, I don't know, maybe peacock bass. I like peacock bass. I think those are really cool, but I don't know. Other than that, not really.
I also don't like to know my food. Like I like cows. They're cute. I like steak. I don't want to mix the in between.
No?
Yeah.
Hamburger, sausage, bacon. Have all the animals named.
I feel like I have a little bit of a unique experience with that because like I did grow up on a small hobby farm, so like I did frequently know my food.
Yeah,
it didn't bother me because I grew up that way, but
that's the way to do it. You know, I think that should the skies come falling down on us and we're in an apocalypse now, I think a lot of people are going to have a hard time eating food.
Yeah,
it's going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah, the good thing is that now that we have good information about like alternatives to meat, that's probably a lot more easily grasped by people who don't have farm experience. Now you can grow mushrooms in a brick on your kitchen counter.
Right. Mail order mushroom kit. It's crazy.
That's a good question. Have you ever aquascaped a mushroom setup?
No. Not on purpose.
Oh, now this is good. Go ahead.
I don't have a story. I'm trying to think. I mean, I know that I've had setups that I've like forgotten about or not maintained that have grown like funguses and stuff. And I probably have had mushrooms somewhere. Not on purpose.
I have had freshwater sponges show up in my tanks. That's super cool. That's like a major compliment because freshwater sponges are really sensitive. So if you end up with one in your tank, that's like, top tier. You've achieved super biodiversity and very clean ecosystem. But yeah, it's super cool to see just what grows in your tank.
Yeah.
If you create the right environment for it.
I agree with that. And that is actually, I will say, one thing that's really pretty cool about saltwater is that there's just so many different critters that just are there. You didn't know where they came from. They just showed up. And when I first started with saltwater, that was absolutely fascinating to me. And sometimes you don't know what they are, but so long as they're not eating fish, okay.
Yeah.
Hang out.
So a good question about that. The saltwater escaping. After it's set up and running, how do you maintain it? Do you wear gloves?
No, I'm probably the worst person to ask about that because I have a very different take on saltwater. I am not a high tech, high dollar, high maintenance kind of person. I'm a firm believer in all of everything that if it's okay, let it go. Let it be. Don't mess with something that's running and happy. So I really don't do a lot of maintenance in my saltwater tank at all. And it's very low stock. So it's not like it's packed full of fish. I'm not overfeeding. There's not a lot of nutrient imbalance. I just kind of let it go until it looks like something might be off. And then, you address it. But for the most part, it's just does its thing, which is delightful, to be honest.
Yeah. You got some macroalgae in there?
I don't, which is what's funny. It's just
no,
it's just like things that I get here and there. One of my clients has a saltwater store, so whenever I go in to drop off something, he's like, "Here, take this." Okay,
Cool.
Okay, so I don't even know what half the stuff is in there. I know I've got some softies, I've got some short polyp. I mean, I don't know any of their fancy, silly names that they come up with for all these things.
I know.
So that's where I tap out. I'm like, no, I'm not going to remember the name of that Zoa that somebody came up with in their basement. It's not.
Yeah, some of the fancier corals are. I mean, they've got like this long string of weird words for names.
Yes, for sure.
Hey, Mike, it's good to see you.
Oh, hey.
Big Mike. Garcia had a question. Would you ever escape? Yeah. Hey, Garcia, you should have been here earlier. You missed out on the good stuff.
Yeah. I feel like the larger tank you have, as long as you have the funding to back it up, that's just, more possibilities for more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to think I like nanos better, but the more you work with larger tanks, the more fun they are because there's so much more you can do. It's just a matter of materials, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and also space. If you're short on space and you don't have because I'm in an apartment right now, and it is hard to keep anything over a certain size because you never know when your landlord or
stop by
gonna get uncomfortable about that much water.
Yep. Well, I've been banished to the basement, so there's a tile floor here that's safe.
Yeah,
I'm allowed out of the basement with any aquarium.
I will say, no matter where you have your aquariums, if you don't have those like leak alarms, the Wi-Fi leak alarms, what are you doing? Get yourself some leak alarms because the peace of mind that you get from that is pretty substantial, especially with larger tanks.
Yeah. And video, some sort of a camera somewhere.
Yep. Yeah.
Watching.
Yep. Oh, Danny, I don't have 20 tanks in the closet. I have 3.
It's not like the killer fish guy, right? With all the plastic shoe boxes stacked up on racks in the closet.
Oh,
no.
Where'd you go, Eddie?
He doesn't love us anymore.
Doing? Oh, I think is he frozen? What happened?
I don't know. You had enough?
I don't know. I don't want to add him back without knowing what he's up to. But yeah, I've gotten pretty creative with my tanks in the limited space that I have. So I was gonna finish a rack on this side in the window here and use sunlight to grow some plants. But it kind of feels like we might be moving. And if we're gonna have to move, I don't want to have to take all that down. So I'm just going to wait until we know for sure if we're going to have to move. We'll see.
That's smart.
Oh.
Very smart. Moving is not fun with aquariums at all.
Yeah, I know. And I was planning on doing some larger tanks too. Okay, Eddie said that he just lost signal. So hopefully he'll jump back in with us. I think as long as I'm here.
I hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. My camera kind of froze up. I don't know. So I guess y'all got it right now. So.
Okay. Yeah, we can handle it.
Okay. Hey, you have a good night.
For us?
No, he's not kidding.
Eddie? Oh no.
He's not kidding.
Hopefully he pops by because I have no control over his YouTube stream. Oh man. Okay, so I have the stream open on the other screen and we're really fuzzy. So we'll see if it like completely closes out.
That's fun.
So far it's not.
Well, I mean, it has been almost an hour, so maybe it's
That's
the
true.
self-timer. Everybody's like, nope,
Yeah.
go, kicking you off.
I don't know. Daniel says, looks like we're stuck here. Yeah, Coro says that StreamYard usually keeps it up if he doesn't close it. So hopefully he pops back in because I don't want to just like leave and then have the stream still going. But
yeah, that'd be weird.
Okay, Cody says that it looks good. So maybe it's just on my end that it looks a little fuzzy. But yeah, I mean, we can keep talking for a little bit. Hopefully he pops back in. I've never had to host. I'm always the co-host, so this feels a little weird. Garcia has a question.
Does anybody in the crowd have any questions?
Yeah, Garcia wants to know if you know Chance. Okay.
Sure do.
Yeah, Coro, I do have his number. I'm going to text him and see what he says.
Chance is actually now working with us in a consultant, basically, type position with OASA. So.
Oh, okay.
I think he's a media collaborator or something like that. I don't remember what title they came up with for him, but yeah,
I don't know who Chance is. So this is like outside of my. I'm pretty new to like the whole fish tuber crowd. I kind of met. Oh yeah, so. Okay, Eddie says he's going to give it another try. It froze up on his end. So hopefully he'll pop back in pretty soon. But yeah, I kind of met everybody at Aquashella this year. I didn't really know most of the people until actually Jessie from Corey Dorables on Instagram. She kind of pulled me into a group chat for Aquashella this year. So we kind of all got to know each other that way. And then I ended up getting involved in the Aquascaping contest and my club was there and it was a whole thing.
Very cool.
Is he back? Eddie, are you back?
Hey,
there you are.
Look at that.
You gotta switch. Here we go. There we go. Gotta have us in the right spot.
That's right. Hi.
Hi. That was weird.
Yeah, it was.
It was like all of a sudden, instantly, I was gone. That was it.
Yeah.
Technology.
I know. Back.
Thank you. Did you miss me?
Yeah, we're.
I
didn't really know what to do. I've never like been the host before. I'm always the co-host. Not having you here was a little weird.
So maybe, Nirvana, maybe next time we need to practice this on a regular basis. That way, if it happens again, you can take charge of it.
Yeah, I need to like write some questions so that I don't have like dead air.
Right. Oh, you're good. You got it.
Daniel, I did not. I can. You guys don't give me the benefit of the doubt sometimes. Come on. I just scared the crap out of my cat. I don't know what happened.
So, since we asked Jennifer all these questions all night long, Jennifer, do you have any questions for us on panel?
No. Was I supposed to? I'm not prepared.
This is awesome, y'all.
I didn't realize I was getting questioned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't prepare anything either. I was basically like, no, I'm just gonna wing it.
Yep.
But yeah.
So, how do you feel about the host and co-host?
Garcia has an agenda. I see what's going on here.
Uh-huh.
I'm in. Where are you, Garcia?
He's in Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh, okay. Yes, I will be at Daytona. To answer your other question.
So, I usually ask my guests this. How do you feel about Vibes Aquatics by now?
I think it's the most awesome ever.
Yeah. I think that you've done a really good job curating your content and your channel and everything, and your live streams are very consistent. I think that everything is going really well.
Until Vibes freezes up.
Right. Yeah, until you just like drop out of the video stream.
Yeah.
Oh, baby.
Oh, kitty.
Loud.
Don't apologize.
So cute.
So whenever I have like work meetings and he starts doing that, people assume that I have a newborn because it sounds like
yeah, a child. Yeah.
No, you didn't miss me being pregnant and having a baby. So,
Right.
nope, just this dum-dum. Right, bud?
Okay. One more question.
Yes.
If you could aquascape any such tank you want, what would it be? And what kind of aquascape would it be? What was it in stocking? This is, I'm open to you. Go ahead.
That's kind of a loaded question.
It is. But hey, I ask all my guests that, so go ahead.
All right, you're asking me today, so I'm going to give you today's answer. I am super, super enjoying native biotopes because I think we have some freaking amazing fish here in North America that don't get nearly enough time. So I think I would probably do some sort of a native biotope type setup, and it would be a decent size. I mean, I would have to be, 150, 200 gallons at least, just to do it right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what?
Yeah, I have this dreamscape that I probably will not achieve for quite some time. But I would really love to do a glass fronted pond that is about 2 to 3 feet deep, and do like a giant stump in the middle of it with a bunch of immersed growth and a deep sand bed with like a ton of geophagus.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Just like do a whole tank full of geos and, decorate that stump and any rockery on the outside with epiphytic plants, and just leave that sand bed bare and just let them go to town. I think that would be stunning.
It would be very cool. I like it. Geos are really neat.
Geos are one of my favorite cichlids. They are just so fun to watch.
Yes, their behavior is really, really fascinating. Yeah.
Yep. And the fact that they get those long trailers on their fins, and their breeding behavior is so interesting, and it's just, they're a really awesome species.
Agreed.
Okay. Hey, what's something about you that people are surprised to know that about you?
I hate to say it, but it's really surprising. I'm not saying it for attention, but I used to be a professional drag racer.
Okay.
That is so cool.
That with people up quite a bit.
I feel like there is so much crossover with cars and fish. Is it just like the specificness of the hobby?
I
I
don't
feel like
know.
that's what it
Weird,
is.
right? I agree.
Yeah. Because I've met a lot of people that are really into cars, whether it be in racing or building or whatever, or just, interested in them, that are also into fish in some way. Because I'm also into cars, a lot less on the professional side. I'm more of a, get dirty in my garage type of person. But that's really cool.
It's an interesting dynamic. You've got all the really the cleanliness and the zen of nature, basically, on the one hand, and then the other hand, it's just like race car horsepower. So it's really kind of an odd mix for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey y'all, I'm gonna have to do something quick.
Okay.
It's one of the requirements of being this.
Very good.
Keystone Clash has asked all the fish tubers to advertise for them, So hey, I'll do what I can. I'm not great advertisement, but hey, if you're in the area in Pennsylvania, Morgantown, next month, come on by. Hey, guess what? You get to see Jen Williams in person.
That's right. We're doing stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So definitely come on by. Give Jen a hug for me.
I'm actually going to be giving a presentation. I'm going to be running the Aquascaping contest, and I'm also going to be giving a presentation on my how I built my backyard biotope. So it's going to be kind of
that's cool.
Yeah, a neat little talk.
Nice. And
I'm sad I'm going to miss it.
Sorry.
It's going to be like a 3-hour talk show? 4-hour talk show?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, this will be good. I signed up to come, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. But anyway.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Bummer.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, I have my high school reunion is the week before. And I booked that way ahead of time, and I don't want to be traveling 2 weekends in a row.
It's hard.
That's not going to be fun. Yeah.
It's hard. And have something 3 out of the 4 weekends in September, and I am not looking forward to next month at all. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. By October, by November, I'm gonna be pretty tapped, and then we'll just go to Daytona.
Again.
Yeah, and then you got the holidays and the mix of all of that. Oh man. And holidays, I don't know what it is about holidays, but everything just gets so much more stressful, whether you celebrate or not. Like, people just get feeling some sort of way during the holiday season, and it is just a little unavoidable. I would encourage everybody to just keep in mind that as we roll into September, November, all of the holiday season months, that you just take a deep breath and remember that it's only temporary part of the year.
Okay. Hey, I think it's that time of the night before Vibes freezes again. Yeah. So, Nirvana, before we head out, what do you want to say to the fish fam or the aquascaping fam?
As usual, stay curious, friends.
Nice. How about you, Jen?
Keep scaping.
Woo!
I like it.
I like it. Hey, for those that have made it this far in the replay, I guess it must be Jen. That's all I can say. And thanks for being here, y'all. Until next time, love your family and friends, and deal water changes. Bye.